Good morning, my fabulous Sonder fam. I am so excited that you're here. Hopefully, are you all dancing on the ceiling? Just to let you know, that song turns 40 this year, in case you were wondering. It's one of those other things where I think, how on earth could that song be 40 years old? But it is. So I'm so glad to see everyone here. I say see in little air quotes because the only person that you can actually see is myself. All of your cameras are off, all of your microphones are off. You don't ever have to worry about someone seeing or hearing you if there's like a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, I know 40, but it's still a good song, right? We still enjoy it. And I saw a lot of folks in the chat this morning saying they were just a happy little potato. So I love all my happy little potatoes. And I saw some spicy sass muffins, a few ruminating rumplets. I just love cozy nerdy things on Instagram. She always has these cute little kind of which mood are you today, which thing are you today, and I always just think that's so cute. So um with me this morning is my fabulous co-host, Jen O in Texas, and she will be keeping an eye on the chat. She might pop on and give a little wave. She's got an event she has to go to right after our socials, so she's up and ready to go. I know a lot of times in the morning I am still in my jammies, which I am still in my jammies. So, but that's okay, right? That's the great thing about the Zoom calls. You can only see that much. So, just a few things. I don't know. Is anyone new? Is this your first social, first time coming to one of our events? You can just put a little me in the chat or say, I'm new. We love Emma. Welcome. She says this is her first. So lots of fun things. These hours go by super fast, I will tell you. And also the chat can get rolling pretty fast. We usually have upwards of over 100 people here. So sometimes that can get rolling pretty fast. If it's just not your jam, if it's like stressing you out, just close out of it. You do not have to participate in the chat. And I always tell everyone this hour is your hour to do with what you need. The idea is that you've carved out some time to work in your journal, maybe planning for the next week, or maybe it's even just answering some of the other prompts or doing some other things, right? It's totally whatever you need to do during this time. Also want to make sure to remind you that you want to make sure you set that chat to everyone, that little blue box. It has an obnoxious tendency in Zoom, if you're on an iPhone or an iPad, to flip back to host and panelist. Then the only people that see it are myself and Jen. So just know that we'll try to remind you if we see that happening. But just know that if people aren't maybe responding to a question or something that you have, it might be that no one else is seeing it but myself and Jen. So if you haven't met me yet, my name is Maya, and I am here in Aurora, Colorado, a little suburb of Denver. We actually got a little dusting of snow last night. It has been in the 60s for the past few weeks. We've had a few little dips in temperature, but keeps going up. So finally today it's actually cold this morning. I think it was 16 degrees this morning. So burr. But that's what it's supposed to be, right? So yeah, Emma's up in Longmont. Nice. Yep, that is. I have been to Longmont many times. So yeah, so the weather's been kind of weird, but I appreciate it being cooler like it's supposed to be, right? Except for, it kind of frustrates our plants and that kind of thing, kind of trying to figure out what temperature am I supposed to bloom? Am I not supposed to bloom? All of those kinds of things. Also, just a few little quick community guidelines just to remind folks of how we want to kind of present ourselves here when we have these socials. We want to make sure that we're kind and courteous to both yourself and others. No promotions or spam. We respect everyone's privacy. No hate speech or bullying. Limit those repetitive product and accessory questions. It's fine to kind of chat about pins that folks use or where folks got their stickers. But honestly, the best place to ask those questions is in our app and in the Sonder Club app. So then people can post links and pictures and those kinds of things. And then any of those customer care inquiries all go to our headquarters team, hello at Silk and Sonder. Jen and I don't have access to your account, so we can't look up or fix billing addresses or update credit card expiration dates, check shipping, those kinds of things. We can't check any of that. So make sure all those requests go to hello at silkandsonder.com. Just keep in mind that our headquarters is a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 Pacific Coast kind of person. So they may not get back to you immediately. So just a little patience is appreciated. And then ultimately, these socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. And if you've been with us for a while, you know that we have a fabulous, supportive, creative, fun, just lovely family here, but ultimately you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So sometimes we join a social and we're just not feeling it, right? We're kind of not in the place where we want to work on it. That's fine, right? You don't have to stay, right? No one's taking attendance. Also, you can work on any other part of your journal if you want to. Again, we're not going to come by and knock on your door. There's no journal police checking on how you're doing the journal. There's no right or wrong way to do your journal, no right or wrong way to attend these socials. Just being here. Sometimes some people come and hang out in the chat the whole time and visit with their friends and take some notes and work on their setup later. Some people's kind of nose and journal, ignoring the chat. Again, you totally take what you need from this, and that's what I think is so great. Is this is really a space that's here for you when you need it. And I know I see a lot of folks sometimes say like, "Oh, I've been away from Silk and Sonder for maybe 6 months or maybe a little bit longer, but I've decided to come back. I need, I need that structure." And that's the nice thing is we're here for you, right? You can step out, step in. It's just you take what you need and you, right? And yeah, Nicole is saying like she might join tomorrow night too. We have weekly setups on Saturdays, Sundays, and Monday mornings. We alternate the times on Saturdays and Sundays between the morning and the evening, afternoon time, just so that the most people can get what they need. And also we do record these. They are posted on YouTube for you to watch. The only thing is the chat is not there. So just so you know. Also like to recommend you do some little screenshots if you like. If there's something you want to remember or there's a quote that you really like, you can do a little screenshot of that because the slides aren't available anywhere for you. But again, you can always watch the replay. So this month's theme has been alignment, and I think it's been very interesting. I can't believe we're already in the middle of January. Not sure how that happened. But folks have been really kind of divided a little bit with that theme of alignment. Like, what is it meaning for them? How is it working for them? And just know, just because we set a theme for the month doesn't mean you have to stick with it. If you pick a different theme, maybe you have a word of the year that you're working with, and that's what you're going to kind of focus on. Totally up to you. But I liked this quote from Brian Tracy, and this is the person who wrote the Eat the Frog book. If you know the Eat the Frog, where if you do the hardest thing or the thing you've been avoiding first, then you've eaten the frog. And if you eat a frog first thing in the morning, then you've gotten the hardest thing out of the way. Anyway, he says, just as your car runs more smoothly and requires less energy to go faster and farther when the wheels are in perfect alignment and perform better, you perform better when your thoughts, feelings, emotions, goals, and values are in balance. And so, really kind of thinking about this month as kind of setting things up for are your thoughts, behaviors, your feelings, is that all in alignment with where you want to be? So, I think this is a great theme to explore here in the month of January. So here's our agenda for this morning. We're going to do our little alignment mind map. When you come to the weekly socials, we have the special little activity where we dig a little more deeply into the theme for the month. And that's not going to be printed anywhere in your journal. This is going to be something you do on a blank page in your journal. Then we're going to do our rosebud thorn activity, which is over on page 44. I think, yes, page 44. And then we'll do our weekly setup pages, which we really focus on those two pages, page 46 and 47. So just know that that's what we're going to work on here this morning. And if you've been with me for a while, I always use these two little images from the artist, the latest Kate. And I think these are important things to remember. First of all, there's room for you here just as you are. So like a little pile of kittens. If things are going great and you want to celebrate and you want to share that with us, we love to celebrate with Sonder Fam. We love to see the good things that are happening. And we know that life is not always that series of ups, right? There's the downs and the ups and all of those things. So that's okay, right? We can share the challenges. We can share the hard things. We can share our frustrations. Sometimes Sonder Fam have suggestions and ideas for how to get through it. You'd be surprised sometimes with how many people are struggling with the same kinds of things that you are struggling with. So I think sometimes we can kind of feel alone in our struggles. And that's why it's nice to be able to share things here, because you can see that other people are going through similar situations. And then the other that I use says the way you feel matters and no emotion you feel is bad or unworthy. So no one can tell you, oh, you shouldn't be upset about that, or you should be happy for this, or right. Our feelings are feelings, and that's just what they are. And we're here to feel all the feels together. So let's dive into that mind map. So if you've been with us, this is going to be week 3. So you already probably have a space. If you're new and you haven't been with us for a while, I'm going to show you all. You'll see all the prompts. You don't have to catch up, right? You can just start with the one that's here for this week, but certainly want to give you the opportunity to see that. So this idea of in January, we're really kind of centering ourselves around that powerful theme of alignment. And after that busy energy of the holidays, January is really that chance to pause and think about our habits and rituals and daily routines that are truly serving the person we want to become in 2026, right? We aren't just looking for vague resolutions. We're looking for that glow up that happens when our outside actions match our inside truth. And I know Meha, our founder, had a really fun social. I think it was Thursday. Jen was the stage manager on that. And that was a glow up kind of social. She was kind of talking about that. And that was a paid event. So if you have our Sonder app, that will probably show up in there a little bit later. If you want to watch the replay, you don't have the coaching app, you can always send an email to hello@silkandsonder.com and you can pay the fee and you can get a recording of that, just so you know that is available. So this week we are on week 3 and we're going to do a little bit of an energy audit. So we are going to list the people, projects, and places that are currently receiving our energy. Then we can draw a star next to the ones that provide a glow up effect and a circle around those where maybe we need to set some firmer boundaries to stay aligned. So you can see the other week 1 and week 2 up there if you want to take a screenshot if you haven't had a chance to work on those. But really going to do this energy audit. So really you're just going to list out in your little section those people, projects, and places that get your energy, regardless of whether you want your energy to go there or not. And then star next to the ones that provide the glow up and a circle next to the ones where you want to maybe think about setting some firmer boundaries. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit of music, let you work on that, and then we'll check back in. Feel free to share in the chat any of the people, projects, and places that you're putting on this list. Maybe you want to share the ones that are getting the star with the glow up. Maybe you want to share the ones that maybe need some firmer boundaries. And then we'll check back and keep moving on. Okay, lots of good conversation in the chat. Folks really kind of first getting that list of the people, projects, and places. And then I really appreciated that a lot of folks said some of those are actually a star and a circle, right? And I think that's a good example of the duality of life, right? There's things that can be help us, right? And the glow up and the things we love, the people we love, and then but then also sometimes the challenges. So dealing with a parent who has an illness and having to do that caregiving and really thinking about, I need to set some boundaries, but how do I do that, especially if that person maybe has Alzheimer's or dementia, and they don't understand if we're trying to set that boundary. So really you kind of have to turn it around on yourself and set the boundaries for yourself. So like saying if there's a way that you can get someone to maybe help with some care so that you can take a break, if you can help yourself understand that the things that they're saying or kind of like their behaviors aren't a reflection of you, or you don't have to fix everything, really kind of thinking about the thoughts that you have when you're in that situation, just kind of allowing those to pass by. There's the boats on a lake metaphor that kind of talks about just kind of sitting and allowing every thought that you have just to kind of put it on the boat and watch it pass by. And some boats will speed on by and some boats kind of stick there for a while, but that's okay. We don't have to speed those along. We just are their thoughts and we're putting them there and we let them go. So sometimes that boundary is ourselves. And then I saw some other folks talking about, maybe they're having some illness that they're having to deal with, and, maybe going in for surgery or having to kind of work with some health issues. And health issues can be really tough, right? When we get to our rosebud thorn, I tell you a little bit more about my husband and his appendix issues. But so it's tough, right? And they're just, that's kind of, again, how life is. Sometimes things are up, sometimes they're down. And so I think this is a really good opportunity. And you might want to revisit this throughout the week, of those things that give you that glow up, those things where you need to set boundaries, and see if kind of the balance that you can set if you maybe want to revisit some of those things that give a little bit of the glow up, that give you that energy, that give you that feeling of alignment as you move forward. So thank you all for sharing in the chat. I appreciate your very honest thinking about what this looks like. And yeah, Jen is saying you may be working on this mind map prompt all week or even for the rest of the month, right? Really kind of thinking about identifying this as sometimes the first step to figuring out alignment and what that looks like. So thank you all for spending a little bit of time doing that. So we're going to move over to page 44 now, which is our rosebud thorn activity. And we like to do these on a weekly basis, and then we do it kind of on a bigger frame at the end of the month. So these are always really good to look back on when you do your monthly reflections, so you can kind of see. So I like to start with the thorn, just because I like to start with the maybe uncomfortable thing and then move into the more happy things. So the thorn is something that maybe is a challenge, something stressful, maybe something you don't have a lot of control over, something that's outside of that sphere of influence, something that's frustrating, something that you maybe need some more support with. And so for me, not this last Thursday, but the Thursday before, I had to take my husband to the ER. He had acute appendicitis. He had actually was septic. They had to admit him to the hospital. Lots of IV antibiotics. He had a rough 3 days in the hospital, but finally felt good enough. They were able to send him home on Sunday. But he's still kind of dealing with not feeling great. They won't actually do the surgery for a while. I guess now the new protocol is, if it hasn't ruptured, they try to cure the infection first before they go in and take care of it. So he's got an appointment with the surgeon on Tuesday. He was feeling pretty rough yesterday, but I gave him some time. I took some ibuprofen and took a nap after work, and then he said he was feeling much better. So he's doing okay, but he's not great, and we really don't want to have to wait 6 weeks, which is what the surgeon said, to do the surgery. I know, right, Maggie? I was like, I don't understand how you can wait. So hopefully when we meet with the surgeon on Tuesday, we can kind of press for maybe something a little sooner, because he's like, I can't feel like this for another 5 weeks. Like, this feels horrible. So But but also we do have to remember that he is kind of a little grumpy fellow when he's not feeling well. So there's always that, right? So that's been my thorn. That's yeah, definitely not something that was on my 2026 bingo card for sure. And then our bud is something that is an upcoming opportunity, something we're looking forward to, something that gives us motivation and inspiration and some possibilities. And so for me, it's a 3 day weekend, and we are off on Monday. Husband's off on Monday. We don't have a lot of things scheduled this weekend, so kind of just trying to chill and kind of absorb some good things there. And then our rose is our highlight, something that we're looking forward to. Or no, our rose not that's our rose is something that we're grateful for, something that's already happened, something that is positive in our life, something that made us feel good. And so I was telling everybody this last week. I had a quilt, a little quilt that I had started at a class at a shop in 2013, just so you know how long ago it was I started it. I did the top part of it and then never, the shop ended up closing and I never got to take a class to finish it. So finally, a friend and I, she was kind of in a similar situation with her quilt. We made a private lesson, 2 hour lesson last Sunday. We got to work on it. I've got a lot of, I still have a lot more quilting part to do, but then we have another class coming up to do the binding on the edge. And so I'm pretty excited. Like that definitely is a rose highlight. Getting something done definitely is a rose, makes me happy. So feel free to share that rosebud and thorn in the chat. I will play a little bit of music again, and then we will keep moving on. I know that was a quick time to reflect on that, and I really appreciate folks sharing in the chat. Desiree got hit by a car when she was out walking. Oh my gosh, that sounds horrible. She said she's doing better, but still kind of traumatized by that event. So yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's so scary. Also not on the 2026 bingo card, right? And so we've got some folks that have some sick doggies, some sick kitties, some sick family, folks trying to avoid the flu that's been going around. I've heard that's been pretty high this year because I think they said the strain that's most prominent now wasn't around when they did the vaccine for the year. So the flu shot doesn't necessarily help as much as it maybe has in past years. So that's always tricky, right? So hopefully everyone can stay feeling well and stay safe. So thank you all for sharing in the chat. Definitely good to good to do that little reflection time. So thank you all for spending a little bit of time with your reflection. Let's go into our weekly planner. So that is going to be on page 46 and 47. We're going to start with page 46, where we've got our how we want to feel for the week coming up. I always think this is kind of a nice way to set your intention for the week, how you want to show up for folks, how you want to kind of show up for yourself, what that looks like. So it could be one word, it could be your word of the year, it could be several words or a phrase. Maybe it's an affirmation that you really liked, maybe it's just some stickers that you really like, a picture, something you want to focus on, or a quote. You can see lots of different ways that people have used this little section. Again, I like the one where it says, I want to feel okay. And they have a little snail, right? And they've kind of done some pretty little washi tape around that. So that looks nice. A little fun in the sun. Want to feel understood, strong, and at peace. Want to feel 100% awesome. One person has how they want to feel for each day of the week. So, and then they have a little check mark, right, for when that passed. So I think that's super nice. So feel free to share your word. Jennifer Navarro is saying she wants to feel inspired. I love that. Happy and energized. What else do we have? Healthy. Absolutely. Want to feel okay. It's been a rough couple of weeks. Yes, I would like to feel a little more confident in my husband's healthcare plan, right? Like, are we going to operate? Are we not? What's that going to look like? When's that going to happen? And then I like to kind of tie that into the weekly major 3 goals, because a lot of times if you think of your weekly major 3 goals as the things where if you accomplish those, you will feel the feeling that you want to feel this week. And this little quote says, by aligning our decisions with our values, our path will gain clarity instead of confusion. Reflect on choices that bring you closer to your goal. So here's some examples of things that folks have used with the 3 goals. Obviously, we always love a good bingo board, right? So you could always do that for your bingo board. We've got an unplug bingo board. We've got just our kind of some goals in there. It's about drinking our water. And you can see she's put the 16-ounce water 3 times in there. So she can check those off when she does that each day. You could maybe have it be around work, body, or mind. Go back to that start, stop, and continue on page 8 that you started at the beginning of the month. Was there anything on there that you need to bring forward to this page? Maybe some intentions from page 9. Those monthly habit trackers on page 11 can help us help to inform our goals. Again, I like the me, home, and work. They have some separate goals. Maybe you want to have a left brain, a right brain, and a no brain goal. I think that's kind of a fun way to look at it. Maybe something that's a little more analytical goal, something that's a little more creative, something that's just maybe more of a feeling or how you want to be. Here's some easy New Year habits for mind, body, and soul from our Silk and Sonder Instagram. Maybe it's 3 new words. If you want to repurpose this, maybe some movies or TV shows you want to watch, playlists, some fun activities for yourself, lots of different ideas for what you want to do here with these goals. So I think that was the last one. Yep. So I will play just a little bit of music. I will cycle through these slides. Feel free to let us know how you're wanting to feel this week, what those goals are, and then we'll check back in and keep moving on. Hey, thank you for sharing how you want to feel, some of those goals. I loved what was the one that I saw? Trying to scroll back through this chat sometimes is kind of a pill. There it is. They had a category of frog, fun, and fierce categories. So frog was the, thing that just do it kind of thing, and then something that's fun, and then something that's fierce. So I think that's a great way to kind of think about dividing those up. So thank you all for sharing in the chat what you're going to put in those feelings and goals section. Let's move over and let's talk about our to-dos, and we'll also talk about those habits and activities because sometimes those two sections are a little interchangeable. So I like to talk about both at the same time. And I thought this little ladybug was a pretty little, let little joys find you. I think that's a nice little uh, to do, right? Maybe that's a good thing to do. So lots of different ways to approach this. Also, I know a lot of folks will just make a straight up to-do list, right? Things that they need to get done. Some folks will use that Eisenhower matrix where you're really evaluating each task and seeing which category it falls into. Maybe if it's something that's important and urgent, then you're going to do it. It's not important, but it's urgent. You're going to see if you can delegate. Important but not urgent, you want to decide kind of what that looks like. And then not important and not urgent, maybe it's things to delete. And Jen popped in the link for the James Clear, the guy who did the Atomic Habits, where he talks about how the Eisenhower matrix can really help us make some decisions with those things that we want to get done. Some people also, I particularly like the Pomodoro technique when I'm trying to get things accomplished, where you pick a task that you want to work on, and then you set that 25-minute timer. You work on just that task. You do not allow yourself to get distracted with phones or emails or other finding fun looking at Instagram posts, right? You focus on that task, work until the time's up, take that 5-minute break. You do that for 4 times, and then you get to take a longer break. And it really helps me when I'm trying to make myself focus to have that timer set. And I'm like, I can only do this one thing. I can't open another window. I can't do another thing. Got to focus on that. You can see they divided their to-dos into things they want to do for themselves, their home, and their work, and they're giving themselves a little point system for when they get it done so they can earn some points. That's kind of a fun way to gamify that to-do list. Give yourself a little reward when you hit a certain number of points. You can see some now and later items. Excuse me. You can have a to-do and a to-do list. I always think of the to-do list as, have you ever noticed, like, you do a bunch of things, but they weren't really on your to-do list, and then you're like, dang it, I did these things, but they weren't written down, so I can't cross anything off. So sometimes I'll write down the thing I did and then cross it right off, and then you get that ta-da feeling. Something you want to do AM and PM if you're working on resetting some of those rituals and habits that you do. Maybe you want to have a work and a home to-do list, a need and a want list, a school and a personal list. And someone put in a link for a Pomodoro timer that they've been using to keep track of tasks. There's lots of free apps and different things you can find online to do that timer. So that's super helpful if you want to do that. Here's some other repurposing ideas. Again, that to-da, a to-don't, maybe it's a list of things you don't want to do this week. Maybe it's how you want to be, how you want to feel. Maybe, again, that to-da bingo. Gotta love a good bingo. Some weekly self-care ideas for when you have no time. So there's some ideas for things you can do: 60 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and 10 minutes. So again, make sure you take some snapshots of these slides if you want to kind of hang on to those for some different ideas. Then we have our habits and activities section, or habities, as I called them one time when I was talking too fast. So I thought this was a good little graphic that was some good reminders for overthinkers. And I also particularly liked the cafe images of, stop replaying the conversation. It's over and done. Not every feeling needs an explanation. Pausing before responding is allowed. I thought those were some good things to kind of think of. Those might be some good to-dos or some habits and activities, or maybe even in your goals section. So here's some examples of things that folks have done. Some people like to set up their goal for the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They want to do this 5 times or 4 times or 3 times this week. And people will ask, how is this part different than that monthly habit tracker wheel? And generally speaking, these are things that are specific to the week. Maybe you only want to do them a couple times. So the monthly habit tracker is more things you want to do every day. But again, you can use this how you need to use it, right? I'm just kind of giving you the guidelines for how we've worked with this before. And I really like the one in the bottom right where they just said nope, they were going to do some traveling that week, and so they're not going to worry about tracking or listing or talking about some habits and activities. They're not worried about that. Here's some other examples. You can have just one thing. You do not have to fill in every single line. Maybe you want to have one thing. Maybe it's three things. Again, you can go back to those intentions and habit trackers to determine what's going on this week. One person down in the bottom, they circled the days that they're going to do the thing, the habit or activity. So that can be really helpful. Here's some fun low-cost activities for the month of January if you're like me and trying to reel in the spending that sometimes gets a little out of hand during the holiday season. And then if you haven't seen on Silk and Saunders Instagram page, they had a really nice 31 days of living in alignment. So today's the 17th. So today's task is to journal, brain dump anything that's been on your mind. So this is kind of a fun, I really like the idea of the little calendar there. And it worked out really well because last week on Sunday it said, do one thing today you've been putting off. And that was the day that I worked on my quilt. So that worked out well. And then I like this little graphic with the cozy weekend vibes, some books and some puppies and kittens and a candle and some warm socks and writing in our journal and a nice cozy slippers, all those fun things. So feel free to share in the chat what you're going to put in that to do or those habits and activities. And then we'll check back in and we'll keep moving on. Okay, thank you for sharing in the chat some of those to-dos and habits and activities. And someone had mentioned they were bringing forward the habits and activities that they had listed last week because they haven't quite stuck yet, and so they want to keep working on those. And you absolutely can bring forward the goal, your goals or your habits and activities or those to-dos. You don't have to come up with brand new stuff, right? Every single time. You can keep bringing those things forward to kind of help you establish that habit. It can take a while to establish a habit. And if you've noticed, you can work really hard, establish the habit, be really good at that habit, and then something happens in your life and it kind of throws things out of whack, and it's almost like you have to start all over again, right? And that can be really frustrating. So bring those forward, right? Have the maybe it's those things, maybe it's a habit that you had been doing really well for a while, kind of the holidays kind of threw that off kilter, and now you want to bring that back in. So be sure to don't feel like you have to come up with new things, right? So let's move over to that B side over on page 47. Our fabulous facilitator, Katie, always calls this her B side, like the B side of the record. So sometimes we like to listen to the B side. Sometimes the B side is exactly what we need. Sometimes that's not. And I think that this page is pretty much always something that people repurpose, right? To kind of make it so that they it is what they need. It's what works for them for the week. So we've got our meal plan, our mind body health plan, our shopping list, and our little I am loving section. So I'll kind of go through each one of those. Oh, someone was asking about that 31 days of alignment calendar. That's on the Instagram page, Silk and Saunders Instagram. So you can just go into Instagram, the little search, and then search Silk and Sonder, and you can find that. I think it was probably at the beginning of the month when it was in there. So you might have to kind of scroll through to find that on there. So our meal plan, right, can be used for planning our meals, right? To track our meals, right? A lot of people though use other apps to keep track of that. Oh, Kelly, why are you saying UGG meal plan? You don't have to use it for the meal plan. You don't have to use it for, I know it never ends. Did you ever think when you were younger that your life would consist of the what are we eating for dinner tonight question? It's always my husband in the morning will be like, I hate to ask this, but what do you want for dinner tonight? So sometimes planning that out can be helpful. We do like to spend Sundays a lot of times planning out our dinners. And I think that can be something that's really helpful because then it helps with the grocery shopping. It helps with us not going out to eat. And then we do try to plan in a night where we do eat out so that we've kind of got that. So we're not, so we're not completely depriving ourselves of the fun of going out, right? But you can see people use this for a lot of things. I love all the cute little drawings, the little doodles. They have the one good thing for each day, and they do some little doodles. Maybe you want to make an actual to-do list of things you have to do. It could be a wardrobe planner. It could be a gratitude log. It could be tracking what kind of movement you want to get in. Maybe it's a favorite thing. Maybe it's an alignment check-in. Maybe you want to check in with your behaviors and those kinds of things to see how aligned you're feeling. There's a nice one, meal plan for the soul. Lots of different questions that she's asking herself. Things like, what are 3 things I'm grateful for right now? What's been making me happy? What's one thing I can add to my daily routine to make me feel good? I love that. Yep, Jennifer writes down daily tarot lessons. So a lot of folks maybe will write down a tarot card pull or an oracle card pull. Some people will put down maybe a different Bible verse or a book that they're reading, or they have one person has the national day of, you know how every day is a national day of something. So to kind of see if they can find something that they want to do, chores list, a decluttering list, some appointments, all of those kinds of things. And I'm going to go through all of these and then play the music to let you work on these, and you can let us know how you're using them. There's also the mind body health plan, where kind of thinking of things that are good for your mind and for your body. One person changed it to their highlight of the day. I think that's a great idea. One person, their whole goal for this was to unplug for an hour each day. So switching to airplane mode, no social media, no email, no phone bings, those kinds of things. I love the little puzzle that somebody made. And in the middle, it says, I thrive when all the pieces come together. And they have different pieces like hydration and guided meditation. I like the person who says they're going to observe, but not not absorb. And I think that's a great, I love that idea, right? I'm going to observe what's happening. I'm going to observe my thoughts, but I'm not going to absorb the feelings of others, the stress of the day, those kinds of things. One person has a feel and a need. I'm feeling this and I need to do this. Nice little like motivation Monday, talk it out Tuesday, walking Wednesday, lots of different fun things that they want to do in a fun little alliteration there, which is super fun. And then our shopping list obviously can be a shopping list, things that you need to buy, but it could also be maybe you're going to keep track of your daily rituals. Maybe you have that morning ritual and you want to kind of keep track of if you did those things. A fun bingo, right? Again, we love doing a little bingo. So we've got boring stuff bingo, a just for fun bingo, celebrate the wins bingo, some self care. Maybe you want to do some quotes in here or some doodles or drawings, some mindfulness activities, your Wordle, those can always be fun. And then that I am loving is just a space for something that you're enjoying right now. So you can fill it out now. You could fill it out midweek, kind of whenever you're thinking maybe there's something that's really bringing you joy. Here's some self care for January ideas that I thought was kind of fun. And then I also really like this page that has just really pretty graphics with like a fun little journal, some little paints, a little pillow to talk about resting or creating or nature study or those kinds of things, right? Or, again, stickers, right? So any of those kinds of things. So I will just cycle through these ideas. Feel free again to take some screenshots if you want to remember some things for next time. Let us know in the chat how you're using any of these sections. And sometimes people don't use this page at all. They just fill it with stickers, right? So totally up to you what you need. So again, I'll play a little music. We'll check back in and then we'll wrap things up. Thank you all so much for sharing in the chat. how you're using these sections. Again, you can see all of these examples. I think Heather said one of the meal plans was hers. These are all examples that we got from you, from the Sonder fam. So these are all HI, human intelligence, not the AI, which I definitely love. So feel free to share any of these pages, any of these sections, anything in Sonder Club. If you feel comfortable, know that you will probably be inspiring someone. I know some people are like, oh, I don't want to share my pages because my handwriting's really crummy or whatever. Nobody cares about that, right? They really don't. And it can be sometimes very affirming to see a real life example of what people do, so it can inspire them to do that. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. I know this is such a fast hour, and we really appreciate you being here. So again, we have some other socials. Jen's dropping lots of links into the chat, how to get to that YouTube to watch the recordings, how to be able to see some of the events that are coming up, how to get the stickers, all of that stuff. So thank you all so much for being here, and we will see you again, hopefully at another social soon.